which can be very, very difficult because there's a lot of people who claim infallible knowledge. Okay. So, then the next question is, what counts as Shabda? So this is the tough question, because people will often ask those who are religious, they will say, well, you say your scriptures are infallible, and I say mine are, and he says his are. So how do we know? What counts as Shabda? Well, how is Shabda reliable? That's actually the next question. But at this point, I want to ask the question is, what counts as Shabda? And Jiva Goswami, he has a great statement in this regard. He says, of course the Vedas, he says, are reliable knowledge, okay? But then he broadens the category further. He said, nor should we not also accept as authoritative such scriptures as those of medical science, for they too were written under the direction of the Supreme Lord. He's speaking of Ayurveda here. One may argue that they are unsanctioned like other works because there is no evidence to prove their authority. But we say no, we can accept these additional texts as scripture because they faithfully follow the Vedas. So when we recite the 10 offenses, then there's to blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures in pursuance of the Vedic version. So this is where that comes from, right? Literatures in pursuance of the Vedic version, those who are teaching the same conclusions as the Vedas. Okay, so Jiva Goswami has taken this category of Vedas, which includes the 4 Vedas and includes Srimad Bhagavatam, and he's made our problem more severe by broadening this category quite a bit, saying anything that follows the Vedas is also counts as Shabda. So that gets us back to our question again. How do we know what is scripture? And this is where there is that crucial piece called sampradaya or parampara. So sampradaya has many different functions, and we, of course, know these functions in our own daily practice, right? We gain spiritual knowledge, we get a community of devotees, we remain faithful to the proper siddhanta, we purify our intelligence. So many things sampradaya does for us, connects us back to Krishna. But one of the most important functions of sampradaya throughout Vaishnava history is that sampradaya helps us to navigate the diversity of religious ideas and beliefs that exists at any given time in history, at any place in the world. There's no point in history where there hasn't been a diversity of spiritual paths and claims to spiritual authority. No point. Even during Krishna's time, right? There were so many different philosophies and ideas that Krishna is directly responding to in Bhagavad Gita. Some say this, and others say this, and even if you believe this, still like this, right? So he's already navigating so many different views and perspectives that are there, as well as completely bogus claims to authority as well, like that, what was his name? Bondrak Krishna, right? Who claimed to be Krishna himself. So this is a very, very old problem, very ancient problem. And one of the most important functions of sampradaya is that it gives us criteria by which to distinguish between what is reliable Shabda and what is unreliable Shabda. It gives us criteria by which to navigate and relate to other religious systems. And I mean relate here in a very diverse way, right? Sampradaya teaches us that, with this kind of idea, we are friends, right? We can appreciate that this bhakti is also genuine and it's heartfelt and it is productive of liberation. But it's not in quite the mood that we practice. So I can honor, I can relate to, I can even share friendship and realizations with. And this perspective here is something that I can take a few things from, right? That I appreciate this aspect of their spiritual path. That this is also a form of bhakti that I can learn something from, that I can appreciate. And this over here, this is anathema. This is rejected by Vaishnava acharyas. That this is something that I need to protect myself from. So when we read scripture and when we read Srila Prabhupada's purports on scripture and the acharyas' commentaries on scripture, one of the things that we're getting, in addition to everything else that we talked about, is we're getting criteria by which we can navigate religious diversity and difference and recognize how we, as followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, relate with the others. So we find models of this in the works of our acharyas. Some categories of literature, they say, are authoritative, period. Right? There's just nothing else to say. Like Srimad Bhagavatam, for example. Many years ago, in our seminar on glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, we talked about Jiva Goswami's arguments for why Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest pramana and why it is apaurushaya, or not produced from human origin, that it is authoritative. So Bhagavatam, like that, there's no ifs and buts connected to it. It's like, this is it. This is the absolute truth. It's the Amala Purana. It's spotless. Please read and understand and relish. Other sorts of literature, the acharyas will say, this is not Bhagavatam, but it's in pursuance of Bhagavatam. So please read, appreciate, and make use of. So it's part of that category because it faithfully follows Srimad Bhagavatam. And other literature, they will just select a few things from it, right? They'll take a verse from Padma Purana, a section from Skanda Purana, maybe just a couple of quotes from the Gautamiya Tantra, and you can see that they are using particular sections to establish Vaishnava conclusions, but it is not something that they are reading over and over again. They're not something they're commenting upon. It is something that they are respecting from a distance. And other things, the acharyas will directly contradict. They will say, nope, this is not right, it's not authoritative, this is in the mode of ignorance, right? So we ought to use the Vaishnava acharyas, particularly Srila Prabhupada, as our guide for measuring what counts as Shabda in a world where there are limitless claims to Shabda. Right? There's no end to how much claims there are to Shabda, and in a world where there are varying qualities of Shabda available as well. Okay. And then the last question, which is perhaps the toughest one, which is, how do we know Shabda is reliable? How do we know what we're reading is reliable? And this is perhaps the kind of the paradigmatic question in the modern world. Right? This is the question we get over and over and over again, that perhaps we ask ourselves over and over again, is how do we know that these fantastic stories, that these incredible claims, that any of this is reliable, right? That I'm not reading another well-written fairy tale. How do I know that this is actually Shabda and not anything else? So this is where I want to spend a little bit of time. One of the fundamental questions that comes up, and we'll deal with others in a minute, but one of the key doubts that emerges, and I hear this often from many devotees, many persons, is what about the historical veracity of these scriptures? History teaches us one thing, history as in a history book, as in school or university. And the Bhagavatam teaches us something very different. In fact, particularly in matters of history, how do we even support claims to the ancient quality of these works? The Bhagavatam is how old? Well, 5,000 years, right? And most scholars will say anywhere from the 3rd century AD to the 10th century AD. So we're talking 1,000 to 1,500, 700 years old, right? So that doesn't match. The historical dating doesn't match. And any types of dates that you try to apply, and the dates just don't work, right? So in order to answer that question, I want to take a step back and ask ourselves something. I want to ask ourselves to question the question, okay? Because often in a question or in a problem, there is embedded the solution itself. Or to put it the other way, in a question you find the problem itself. If you ask yourself, what assumptions does the question carry? So let's take a step back and think about concepts of history and time. When we learn about history in, say, school or college or anywhere else, there are certain embedded assumptions of how time works and of how history works. These assumptions in the Western world, but also now increasingly all over the world, are born from a particular kind and understanding of history that is largely comes from a Christian background, right? So Christianity has a particular way of understanding how history works and of how time works. Time is one of those things that is very culturally specific and yet so deeply embedded around us that we don't notice it until we think about it. We just assume it. It's just like a fish in water. The fish doesn't know that it's swimming in water, or that's what we think anyway, that it doesn't recognize water. We typically don't pay attention to the air we breathe, that we are essentially walking around. We're swimming in this liquid, in this gas around us that's composed of oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and a bunch of other things. Right? We don't notice it until something goes wrong, right? The air quality index rises to 200. Oh, I need air, right? We develop asthma. Oh, actually, I need air, right? So we notice it when something goes wrong. The same is true about time. We don't often recognize that the questions we raise are all embedded in a certain notion of time until something goes wrong. So I want us to think about this for a minute. How does Christianity think through time? And similarly, how does the modern world, which is largely influenced by that concept of time, how does it think through time? Okay? How do we speak of time and how do we analyze it? Okay, I'm going to give you a few key markers of how time is thought of. Okay? First thing, time is linear. It has a beginning point and it has an end point. The beginning point is creation, and the end point is the apocalypse. God created the world at a particular time, and that's the beginning of that cycle, and then it will end, right, at a particular time. It's linear, and it's therefore unidirectional. It can only go in one direction. Right, except in science fiction movies. But it starts one place and it ends another, and we progress through time. The past is the past, the present is the present, and the future is yet to come. Okay? Most importantly, God makes his will known through history, through time. In other words, God is accomplishing what he wants to accomplish through the progression of time. History and time is making his goals and his wishes for this universe clear. It's developing. It's moving in a particular direction. So the movement of time is purposeful. It's meaningful. History is going somewhere. And eventually it will come to a point, a day of judgment, when the good will be distinguished from the bad, and God's will in this world will be made true. And it's all heading in that direction. We can either jump on the boat or we can stay off of it. But one way or the other, it's going to get there. And the Bible is full of examples of how God acts through history to get us to that point. How many history textbooks have you seen with a timeline in them? Yeah? They all have it. Time is always linear. There's always a timeline that goes. And therefore, from a Christian perspective, one's faith is predicated on God's work in history. If it turns out that Jesus didn't actually appear when he said to appear, or he wasn't actually doing the work he was doing, or there's no evidence for him in archaeology, then that is a challenge to faith itself. Why? Because this is what God is doing through history. It's the foundation of that. It's one of the pillars of that. Now, of course, I'm generalizing. There's so much variety in Christian understanding of time. There's so many different types of Christians and so much nuance, so many different perspectives, etc. But just for the purpose of teaching here and to be brief, right? This is very general. Now, let us generalize in relation to time as it's conceived of in Vaishnav, or broadly speaking, Vedic perspective. Okay? So take a picture of this mentally. And now, tell me about characteristics of time from Bhagavatam. Okay? Not specific events or anything like that. Just time in general. What is time like? Okay, so 30 people said it's cyclical. Right? It's going in cycles. Past, present, future. In a circle, which one's the past? Left, bottom, right? Yeah. Not quite clear, right? One way to think of it, actually, to slightly nuance it, is that time is not only cyclical, but it's like a spiral, right? There is a linear dimension to it. It's not like Groundhog Day. It's not like we're living the same day over and over and over again. It's not like that, just getting sick of it until we learn our lesson. No, we are having newer experiences, but we're experiencing the same type of thing. We're going around the same point over and over, but hopefully we're going higher each time, right? So we get the same sorts of experiences. Maybe we struggle with relationships with a particular kind of person, right? So the first time we encounter that kind of person, it's a blow up. And then we reflect on it, we think about it, and so on. They've gone on their way, we've gone on our... Next time we encounter that type of person, we learn something, hopefully, from our last experience, and we go, I think I should do a better job this time. So we recognize that type of person, and we try to respond differently. And then eventually we encounter again, and we don't become agitated at all. And so we're learning, we're going through these different experiences, sometimes across many lifetimes, and we're learning. We're going around the same sort of point, but higher and higher. Or, unfortunately, in some people's case, like this, right? We're going lower and lower because we are descending. Adho gachanti tamasa, Krishna says. So time is cyclical in nature, right? What else? What's another characteristic of time from Bhagavatam? Yes. So I'll extract from that the point that time is very precise, right? And it's inexorable. There's really no way to stop it. It keeps on turning, for better or for worse. It's always turning. What else? Think in big terms here. Yeah, time is repeating, right? It's going around the same point. And it's also, time is largely a destructive force. One of the things that I forgot to mention in my previous discussion of time in a broadly modern context, this is not so much Christian as it is a modern understanding, it's a modern view of time, that time is progressive, right? That things are always getting better over time. So if you're digging in the ground and you encounter a very complex technology and you encounter very primitive technology, which one came first? The primitive. I mean, that my words themselves gave it away. Primitive means old, right? But a very simple technology, very complex, which came first? The simple one, right? How do we know that? Well, because we have a certain assumption about how time works. Namely, time is always on an upward march. Right? And Bhagavatam says, well, it could go the opposite direction. In fact, most of the time it does. It starts from Satya Yuga, then it goes to Treta, and then it goes to Dwapara Yuga, and then it goes to Kali Yuga, and then it requires external intervention to reset it to that cycle. It won't naturally just keep getting better. It actually needs to be reset by the Lord himself, right? So time is overall destructive or degenerating, rather than, this is a characteristic of modernity, this notion of progress, that every civilization that comes rises above the one that was there previously. We are more intelligent, more complex, more well-developed than the one that came previously. And Bhagavatam says, I would say the Vaishnava tradition, the Vedic tradition, this is even the case with, we might say, just the Indic traditions in general, right? Like the Buddhism, Jainism, these dharmic traditions, broadly speaking, share these assumptions about time. Nope, things are... anything else? Okay, who said, what does dilation mean? Yes. Excellent. Time is relative, right? It's relatively experienced. So, Bhagavatam says, we live our 100 years and Lord Brahma lives his 100 years. But in measurement terms, in our terms, his 100 years is actually trillions of years. And in our terms, and in his terms, our life is just like a flash. And the same is true below us, right? The fly, from our perspective, lives just a few days. But the fly, from its perspective, it lives a full life, right? It's born, it gets a thorough fly education, it gets married, has kids, waters the lawn, and dies, right? This is the fly life is just as full as our life is, right? But from our perspective, it's so too short. Too short. So time is relatively experienced depending on where you're at, right? It's not this absolute thing that kind of charges through. And one more thing I want to add, which is time scales are huge, right? It's massive. Time is massive in its range. Bhagavatam rarely speaks of anything in less than thousands of years, but usually it's in millions of years or even longer, right? So look at the picture that you're getting here. Cycles of time that are massive, that keep going in circles, that are relatively experienced. So what is one person's yesterday could be another person's millions of years ago. What happens to notions of history? What happens to your timeline at that point? Did it happen yesterday or did it happen a million years ago? Well, it depends whose timeline it is, right? Who made the timeline? Is it Brahma or is it us? And finally, dare I say, history is going nowhere. Right? It's literally going in circles. Krishna comes into history, dips in, shows us a portal out, and the moment he leaves, what happens? The world continues on its downward spiral. Right? Krishna svadhamo bhagate dharma jnana adibhisaha kalo nashta dishamesha puranarko dhunodita. Krishna put in so much effort into fixing the world, and literally the moment he left, off it goes. Right? Again, sinking. So history itself, yes, Krishna is dipping in and out of history to do things, to provide us with hope, to provide us a portal out. But history itself is not going anywhere except that same circular manner. This is why this world is called samsara, right? It's that endless hamster wheel that all of us are on.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. It was very interesting, but I had to stop it now as it's already 6:47. Any devotee would like to share any comment or question or Hare Krishna, Sarvari Mataji. Yes, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I mean, very nice topic as usual, which we have been hearing for the last few days. Particularly, this time is linear concept vis-a-vis time is cyclical, and that too spiraling, can be upwards or even downwards. That was very, very nice actually. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji, for sharing. Yeah, I mean, when he was speaking, I realized all our understanding, everything we measure only in the linear fashion, because we have been taught in that fashion only since our childhood. Yes, I'll go ahead. Kumarika Mataji, would you like to share something?
Mataji, this perception of time as something relative, it really scares me sometimes when I think that Prabhupada said, yes, most of my disciples might go to the heavenly planets because they are not understanding the way in which to chant, etc. So they are doing it, say, in a ritualistic fashion. It has to be done. So the spice credits will push them into these heavenly planets. If something like that happens to me, then in those heavenly planets, the time scale is different. And there is a prediction that the holy name will survive in this Kali Yuga for another 10,000 years, already 500 years gone in that, 9,500 years. So if we do not take up Krishna consciousness seriously and do it the right way, then if we end up in the heavenly planets, then by the time we come back, because their life is different time scale, then it will be too difficult to even pursue Krishna consciousness. So there must be some urgency in us to do it right this very same life. That's why I said it sometimes scares me.
Very true, Mataji. It's, I can't even think about it. I'm really hopeful that I'll probably take birth when Kali Maharaj is coming. That's just my stupidity, but yes, Mataji. I see Yugal Kishore Prabhu. Prabhu, would you like to share a few things?
Hare Krishna Mataji. When we hear from Radhika Raman Prabhu, we get very deep understanding, especially from Jiva Goswami. And we know Jiva Goswami is one of the hero or ideals of His Holiness Rampa Swami Maharaj. So it resonates with the mood of Jiva Goswami. That's so nice to hear that. It is mentioned that Shabda. So he gave very detailed understanding what is the Shabda and how do you know Shabda, how to believe. Of course, we will continue some more time. But one of the points which was very interesting that he mentioned that in particular look at today's context for us is that Srila Prabhupada's purpose, it is the purpose that gives the criteria to navigate on this particular path. And Srila Prabhupada's purpose gives us a guidance that what counts us as a Shabda. Otherwise, it's very difficult because what is Vedic version and what is in pursuance of Vedic version. So for us, it would be very difficult to determine what is Vedic version and pursuance, and that is where we need guidance. And Prabhupada purpose are the one of the pillar which actually help us to understand what is that. So again, boils down to Srila Prabhupada books, and which Maharaj also reiterated, re-emphasized that reading Srila Prabhupada books are the basis for all of us and important if we have to take this movement to the higher level of in terms of time. Of course, Prabhu said time in Vedic version is degrading, cyclic, going spherical in upward direction or downward direction. So, and the modern time is very nice, as Mataji was mentioning that how it is being seen, but Vedic version is a completely different understanding that, and that is where our Vedic literature contribute in that direction. Thank you, Mata. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your sharing. Anyone else? Sanatan Gopraj Prabhu, would you like to share something?
Hare Krishna Mataji, very nice lecture. And of course, there's one thing, when we do the devotional service, when we are in Krishna consciousness, there are two things, chronological age and spiritual age. The time does not elapse. So, suppose you are in 5 years, you are in Krishna consciousness, chronologically you grow to by 5 years, but you are static spiritually. That's what they say. That's one thing. Of course, it has not been covered in the lecture. Another thing is this all the Puranas, 18 Puranas, it has come from Vyasadeva. Is it not? It's all Apurva Vishya. And they are all different, is it not? So for us, Sabda means Bhagavatam. For the others, it may be different Puranas. For their faith, they may take different Puranas as Sabda. But whereas, as far as we are concerned, we take Bhagavatam as a Sabda. It's like that. It's a bit complex and contradictory in many ways, but we have to be very careful. And that's why they have chosen only certain things, even the quote, Skanda Purana, Bhatma Purana, and whatever they quoted only. We cannot go and read Bhatma Purana completely or Skanda Purana completely. Whatever they quoted, we have to take, and we have to be very careful. And whatever Prabhupada says, that only we have to follow. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your sharing. I see Ashok Prabhu has raised a hand. Yes, Ashok Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So it's a nice topic actually, so which generally everyone has. Even I also say generally how we can believe the scriptures, because everyone is claiming their own scripture is right or something like this. So this is a nice topic as we see. So I wanted to hear more about that. Hear about the time also, how different things which he clearly explained on that. I will see. And Mataji, one more question here. That 10,000 years or golden period means, is it from the Kali Yuga starting or is it from the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came? So just as Kumarika Mataji was mentioning, 500 years is what Mataji you're saying? I didn't get that.
Prabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu established the Sankirtan movement, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's 500 odd years back. So 535, something like that. But that from that time, it is predicted that chanting of the holy name will be prominent for 10,000 years.
Oh, okay, Mataji. Because till now, my understanding was like first 10,000 of Kali Yuga is like a golden period. Oh, thank you, Mataji. Nice clarification. Yeah, but yes, yes, Mataji. So you're again, like yeah, what is stressing on that point. We have to be very careful. So should not come to this place again. So it's nice. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
And one more question to Kumarika Mataji, Hare Krishna. Now that you said that with some pious activities, if we go to the heavenly planets, where the time calculation is again different, I mean, how different is it? There, 1 year of here is equivalent to more or less how many years up there? Is there any such thing, Mataji? Hare Krishna.
Our 1 year is equivalent to their something like their 1 year is equivalent to our 6 months is equivalent to half a day there, Mataji. So
It depends upon the which planetary system we are in.
the heavenly.
Yes, a heavenly planet is, as Mataji said, it's 6 months. Pitraloka, like it's like that's why we do Shad ceremony once in a year, as Mataji said.
So their 6 months is equal to our half hour.
It's kind of a 1 day for us.
Opposite, Prabhu.
Theirs is longer.
Our equal to half a day over there. Supposing we are staying there for 3 days because of our pious credits, that will be equivalent to almost so much years, earthly years, isn't it?
It's like 6 months is a day, 6 months is night, something like that. So we do it once a year. And like Brahma Loka is much larger because Brahma Loka is something like 1,000 yuga cycles. Forms 1 12-hour period of hours. 12-hour period of Brahmaji is like 1,000 yuga cycles corresponding here. One cycle is Satyuga, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali Yuga. If like that, it goes like 1,000 times. So that makes it Brahma's one day. Similarly, there is 12 hours of Brahma's night. So as we go further and further in the hierarchy, the time keeps on increasing.
So basically, I mean, going to the heavenly planets and coming back again to the these earthly planets. So there is a chance that the 10,000 years has already passed. So that is what Kumarika Mataji was raising.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Mataji.
One other thing is this section of whatever we are hearing, technically it is called epistemology. Epistemology deals with, this is a very critical component or critical part of any commentary of an Acharya. If you look at Tattva Sandarbha as well, the first section is called Pramana Kanda. Epistemology deals with study of knowledge. So first of all, there's a definition of what is knowledge. And then Acharya gives what is considered to be knowledge. And then they define, what are the different categories of knowledge, validity of knowledge, sources of knowledge. And we heard, right, the 3 sources of knowledge is Pratyaksha, Anumana, and Shabda. So this section is very critical as a foundational aspect of any tattva. If you look at it in Tattva Sandarbha of Jiva Goswami, he established Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest source of knowledge. Everything else comes next, in the category level. So that is what he's establishing. And that Shabda, whatever Srimad Bhagavatam is giving, if anything else is contradicting that, but everything has to be resolved as per Srimad Bhagavatam. And it establishes Siddhanta as well. Another aspect is if you look at Madhvacharya, he gives lot of importance to this pratyaksha aspect. Okay, of course, Shabda is accepted, Aparusha Shabda is accepted. That is the Shabda which is received from the Supreme Lord and which has been given through the Parampara is accepted. But he also gives lot of importance to this Pratyaksha. And that is the core of his Tattva, because one of the goals of Madhvacharya's philosophy is to actually destroy Advaitavada. In Advaitavada, the world is considered to be illusory, Maya. Okay, but Pratyaksha means we directly perceive something of this world through our senses. And like Mayavada says, okay, whatever we perceive is actually Maya. The only thing that exists is Atman, that is Brahman. So they don't give that much importance. In the sense, they say this world is temporary and illusory. And by establishing that Pratyaksha is the one of the important sources of knowledge, he directly actually destroys Advaitin's basic assumption that this world is illusory. So that is why like Madhvacharya focuses a lot on like what we receive even through senses cannot be rejected. Even though our senses are defective and it goes through 4 defects and all these things, still he proves through this epistemology section that one cannot actually discard the knowledge which we receive through the senses, because eventually we need senses to understand things. Okay, without that knowledge, how we understand anything? Even Vedic knowledge, if you have to receive it, he says, okay, we need senses to perceive it. So you cannot reject it. So he directly goes to the fundamental aspect of it, saying, okay, if you are saying this world is unreal, then whatever you are perceiving is not of value, is not proper at all. So that way, what he directly attacks the core of Advaita philosophy. As a Pratyaksha, considered Pratyaksha to be the most important source as well, in addition to Shabda. And he also gives a lot of importance to inference that comes through Pratyaksha as well. So all 3 aspects, Pratyaksha, Anumana and Shabda, they all are there to help us understand Brahman. So that is why this is very important that Acharya spend a lot of time, even though it is very technical and philosophical, Acharya spend a lot of time to help us appreciate what we are receiving. And this is the same thing with Jiva Goswami is establishing why Srimad Bhagavatam for us is the highest source of knowledge. So that is one aspect of it. And another thing, second part, when we looked about time and everything, okay, 2 days back, I went to my daughter's science mela, and it is very true. Like the schools are putting up, like there are different areas. Like when they talk about like invention of pottery, invention of wheel, everything. Eventually, what happens? It all starts with we are in a like this Neanderthal period, and then like slowly we evolve to human beings. All Western concepts of civilizational aspects, how civilization progressed like that. And it is very deep rooted. It has been there for like last 75 to 80 years. We have received these things, this kind of knowledge from British and all those people, and Christian theological way of understanding how civilization is progressing. And this is very much we could say, and it takes a lot, and it is up to us, I think, through our VKP and Bhakta Prahlad School, or reaching out to the schools and colleges to at least to give there is an alternate version. Like what here Radhika Raman Prabhu is talking about is how the different aspects of time, how time is perceived in a Western way and how time is perceived in a Vedic way. And we need to somehow put effort to understand and at least give them, okay, there is an alternative way of understanding things. It is just not like whatever the science says. Okay, see, if you look at the science, okay, they say, okay, they dig the earth archaeology and everything. They dig the earth and they find that certain layer of the earth, they find certain pottery, then they attribute it to this particular period. Tomorrow, somebody finds at the same layer in some other place some pottery or some axe or something. They say, oh, okay, how this is happening, this level, like people should not be such advanced. So they kind of adjust the time period in a very linear way. But rather here he gives a different perspective, saying, okay, time is not like as he spoke in a spiral way. Okay, maybe civilization went through different aspects of it, annihilation and like creativity. Even if you find some advanced object at a particular time period, it means there's an advanced civilization which has existed. It is just not you just go and adjust the timeline. Rather, we should be more like this is where the inference comes into. They use a very simple inference. Rather, we also need to use this Vedic way of understanding things and different way of thinking about it. And it is very like the children are very used to like accepting whatever the teachers are saying. So this is very important for us to understand the modern scientific way as well as this Vedic way, and then try to present this alternative way of understanding things, how things are evolving and like going bad. Otherwise, like the kids get very easily influenced with this Western way of understanding things. That's it, Mataji. Hare Krishna. And it is all up to us to understand, give our children, okay, or invoke curiosity in the children that they don't take history and all these things as just because they don't like history because like it's all about timelines. So we need to make history more appealing to them, and how because history in a way connects with the science and maths and all those things as well. We need to give that curiosity of understanding history to our children and present it from the perspective of Vedic civilization as well, so that they don't get swayed just by this Western way of like presentation. Sorry, I took a lot of time. Okay, it's already 7 sir.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your sharing. I don't see Shampun Prabhu here. Any other devotee who would like to share something or any question or okay, then we'll close our session here today and we'll meet again tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Ansha Kalpa Tarubhyasya Prakasandyatya Yuvasya Kapitana Pavanabhyo Vaishnavibhyo. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.